The sync between Global Dokkan and JP Dokkan has been nothing short of rocky, but was it all worth it in the end? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are going to be addressing another community response, right? This time in regards to the Dokkan global sync. That's right. We are now fully unified and schedules are synced up with the JP version. This announcement first occurred in Worldwide 2023, the Vegito and Zamos celebration, and it has had many ups and downs. There were lots of situations that may have been handled well or may have been handled better. And so my question to you guys was, what are your thoughts on the full sync now that we're here, now that it's done, so to speak, as we approach into the 10th anniversary? Was it for the better? Was it for the worse? Was the final product of a fully synced game, both global and JP, worth everything that we had to deal with going through? Remember that as global players, we were given this announcement, like I said, in 2023 Worldwide Celebration. And it would have appeared that almost no effort was made until about August of this year, just before the next Worldwide. As I said, there seemed to have been plenty of opportunities where things could have been done, yet were not. And the end result was that many banners were crammed into the post-anniversary celebration, including the brand new tech UI getting thrown into the end of anniversary, which is not necessarily an ideal placement. This also led to other banners kind of getting shoehorned in between places where they may not have been most ideal. And then, of course, you know, the inevitable loss of LR Jiren showing up here in December, nearly 6 months since his initial release on JP. Now, this is slightly better than how it usually is for this Carnival LR, right? Usually these guys come out in January for global players, but still, nonetheless, the result being, you know, the final result is that we did get a double raids banner that included both Gotenks and Jiren on the same banner, and we got 150 stones where we got them guaranteed. So the question is, since this announcement, what do you guys think? So we'll start by taking a look at some comments here on Twitter, starting from our good friend Shadow here. So to him, the sync was a mess. That almost everybody agrees. How they handled it could have been better. That he feels that is subjective. But anyway, could have been better than what they did. Dumping UI Goku right after anniversary before Worldwide was just a slap in the face. Yeah, and I did kind of agree with them there. And so I did follow up with him there just to kind of probe his thought process here, right? Does he think that altogether we are in a better position as global? And having lost global foresight, do you think that we, you know, as well as receiving less rewards, it seemingly from major challenges, right? How does he think about that now that we are synced? So he responds with, it is difficult to say until we get at least a year into it for sure, but at first glance, it seems that we're in a better state, right? Hopefully, the loss of rewards does kind of make sense, he says, given that we now have pity. It's not perfect, but it does make sense. So, all right, nice little response with him, and I definitely agree, right? There could have been any million number of things they did differently, but definitely dumping UI Goku in August was probably the worst thing they could have done for global players. Jiren, 1207, it was for the better, but everything was going on for the sync, made him want to quit, right? And I feel like that did push a lot of people over. I do kind of agree with Jiren here, right? A lot of people were pushed to the edge. For this, to the point where many I know had to take a break because it was just too much for a lot of players. So I definitely see that thought. Okay, we got Erode Sama here for posting. I do appreciate that. I did reach out to see if he could give us a response, and sure enough. So the global JP sync collectively has been horrible overall. The idea of us sharing and getting content at the same time like DV Legends seemed promising, but it's just the end result has been delay after delay. Global God Goku Frieza fight 6 months later, right? That's the biggest thing, right? For me, getting that fight so much later, because I can't tell you as a content creator the number of times opinions were dismissed for global players for not having access to that fight. So I definitely feel like the delay in that was huge. They should have just dropped that with UI if they were going to delay Jiren. And as a content creator, he's going to miss getting 2 different anniversaries because it gave you something to do and look forward to. But now you think of the days the content will be even drier. I agree. And I've been saying this, right? Now that we are only in a singular anniversary, it means we only get one chance to kind of talk about the hype of the anniversary. And then, of course, it does mean that a lot of views are going to be consolidated in 1 or 2 areas. And, it means the dry periods of Dokkan are going to get even drier. So I definitely see where he's coming from there. On the bright side, right, 10th anniversary will be unforgettable because the first time we will be synced, and it is the biggest celebration, and everyone is on the same page. Global won't be left out. It being up to date will be huge for Dokkan, especially for content creators once Global is caught up. Yeah, so definitely agree. I think depending on how well the 10th anniversary is handled, I really think that's kind of the sticking point to this whole question, is that if the 10th anniversary ends up being handled extremely well, then it was all worth it in the end. But if not, right, if it's another worldwide Broly celebration, which I don't necessarily think was terrible, but a lot of the community did, right? If that is the feeling that comes out of it, I could definitely see the feeling of the sync feeling much worse after that. And that looks like that's all that. Oh, well, no, that's not. Okay, that's just his. Okay, so more on Twitter. Was it for the better? Yes, no doubt. Was it worth the annoyance? No, not really. Yeah, and I feel like I have seen this sentiment a lot. For having both versions get everything at the same time can be good, but what we had to go through, not so much. Yusuke, definitely better. 2025 has the potential to clear this year if done correctly. It'll be the most united the community has ever been, which is very important. No more waiting for content on being behind on units, pity on all banners. Lots of good EAs, and potentially the greatest anniversary in Dokkan history. Everything is in place for the best year of Dokkan, especially with its up and down. So definitely feels like, again, 10th anniversary going to be that sticking point for a lot of people on this question. Biomonster, maybe just release the character and the next new character. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you mean there. If you're watching, hey, let us know. Blair, we don't know until JP Annie, I would say. Well, it's no longer JP Annie, it's our Annie too. And I see that it's a sticking point, but I mean, we're basically synced now, which is why I asked the question now. Too many banners too quickly from Gamma 1, and I do agree there, right? That was the biggest problem with Global at this point, especially if you were someone who wanted someone like Roshi or, AGL Vegeta or Slug, right? Or Jiren. Like, you had to make choices, which was a bit unfortunate, so... let's hop over to our community post here and let's take a look at who responded on our community post. We got a few extras. So Joe San responding on the community post. Beginning of the year, everybody was excited for Synchro. By the end of the year, everybody was finally it's done. And I do feel like that is a pretty common sentiment as well. Taiga, most people urge for the sync to have come sooner, but it's fine. Not everybody has time to play every day. I think that's a fair point, right? As content creators, we often assume people are playing as often as we are, but I think it's important to remember not everybody does play every day. 2, the events released on the JP side gave global players time to formulate optimal unit growth and team builds. Therefore, sync to be 100% both sides now is okay. So. All right, I definitely understand that. I understand this part from a casual player's perspective. As a content creator, it definitely sucks. But as a casual player, right, knowing that Goku Frieza was coming, you had time to start building your team. So yeah, that's definitely a plus. And, I hadn't considered that. That's a really nice thought there. Okay. Wanted, short answer, sync disturbed the peace. Long answer, peace has been restored. Fair enough. Okay. Mohan Doyle, best thing ever. No explanation there. Randy Singer, peanut butter. All right, great answer. Obviously, the best answer. All right, the E-like is now that it's over, don't really care, but damn, did it feel like they had zero plan every step of the way. See, this sentiment right here, this is the step. So I'll say that this is the thought that I had, right, is that it really didn't feel like they were having a plan until I sat down and kind of had a chat with Proton10MG on Twitter. On the back end of things, they were doing a lot of work to advance Battlefield and a lot of world tournaments and a lot of other things on the back end that we don't necessarily see in game every single day or even every celebration. So there were a lot of things being moved around to ensure that we ended up synced in that regard. The end result, a loss of stones and some other things, but it did really feel like they didn't have a plan there. So I do kind of agree with that. Starcart, while you don't think they're going to answer for it was good for global until we see what comes next. Some of the content should have been handled better for the sync, but at this moment we have no real idea how good it will be. I think it's for the best for the games to be simultaneous. We have to see how things going. Yes, losing the skip or save advantage is fine because you have you lose 6 months delay at the most hype. I know I hated waiting 5 months for global to get any units, and my wallet suffered between Annie worldwide before we switched to JP. This can only be for the best in the end. So I do kind of agree with that. Again, I don't think we really need to, personally, I don't think we need to see what comes next, but I do understand that. Again, 10th anniversary being that sticking point for a lot of people, but I don't think we need to. We're here now. We know what the next dual Dokkan Fest is going to be, right? I don't think we really have to think about it all that much in terms of what's going to come next. So I think we can just kind of roll with it here and make our judgment because now it's done. Moving on. Daughter Napoli, I would have preferred to stay 6 months behind to plan a poll. It's not worth what we've been through. You lose power to see it in the future. So I definitely agree with that. And I do personally think of this, and so I'll talk of this on this as a moment. I do think that this is kind of a big deal for a lot of players, and it kind of got overlooked in this whole conversation. So lastly, we're gonna jump into our Discord here. We got a couple comments on the Discord that we want to acknowledge. So let's see the last group here on the Discord. Here we are. We have our community discussion tab. We pose the same questions. So from W here, now that we're finding the sync, can say it was bad as first. Tech UI Goku released with barely half the content, and that's ridiculous. Jiren just out of nowhere for the longest time. Christmas double rates banners kind of made the most sense for him to show up. That being said, banners like Jiren could have dropped to the smaller banner between months. DFE, Tech UI was the worst of the bunch because he had the mindset of at least he's in the game. It just sucks that we had barely any difficult content to try him out. Only recently we did the Goku Frieza fight. So, I mean, I do agree with this. It was handled very bad. Tech UI Goku released barely half the content was... Well, yeah, that was a big issue for me with UI celebration. It's like we literally got half the celebration and we didn't even get the stones to go with it. So that was kind of rough. And then we got the other half later, which gave a lot of stones, but then we didn't get Jiren. So that was really weird handling there. In terms of this, though, I don't necessarily agree with that. Remember, he released at the time of the 9th anniversary, which means for global, the 9th anniversary fights were still there. And, I'm not going to say he didn't make it. He made it easy, but, it wasn't very difficult for him at all. But it was difficult enough. I mean, as difficult as it was with any of the anniversary units. So I wouldn't say that. And then, of course, a month later, we got... the memorial battles. So, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that last sentiment there. Charisma, the process the sync was painful. There were better opportunities to drop UI and sell max when there was less going on, but at least it's over, and the only major celebration you didn't have was Jiren. All right, well, good. I'm glad that worked out. But yeah, a lot of people seem to agree that dropping UI when he did was not great. Ichigo was actually thinking of doing this at the end of the 10th anniversary. All right. Thoughts are the sync was handled poorly from the start, but slowly got better, especially during the Annie getting Tech UI in the end and Topo right after him. I think the reason Jiren is coming so late is due to the survey. There was an option about when the unit should have come out. JP was going smooth, and it always does. Global was struggling, surely, but the sync progress ended very well with Jiren and Goat syncs. Personally speaking, would rather have pulled normal Dokkan Festers than calling it Sync Special Summon, being a 150 stone. Yeah, so like if they had just thrown so what they did, so what he's saying here is like if what they did with Gotenks and Jiren is do that for the Dokkan Fest as well. Just throw all the Dokkan Fests we're missing onto a single banner, and then same thing, 2 guaranteed SSRs with 150 stones would have been nice. So I agree with that. Dropping Roshi in the middle like that was just, it wasn't good. Same with Topo. And then Heart Striker on the way to the full sync was absolutely painful. Loki feeling like it's drier than the Sahara Desert with no chance to grind. I agree. It seemed drier than usual there. But now post sync, you want to see how everything is handled. But sync at all costs, right? Let's see if it was worth it. So we'll come back to that thought there. And I do believe that is pretty much it there. Yep. Okay, so that would appear to be all of our Discord. So let's head on back to the post here. All right, so we'll give my thoughts here on this whole shenanigans. So I'll say from the start, right, to address the initial question, right, was the final product worth what we'll have to go through? In my opinion, I don't think it was, right? Yes, getting a double rates banner was nice. Getting it with a 150 guaranteed featured was nice. All right. Knowing that we are now going to celebrate anniversary in 2 months is nice, but it leaves out this right here. And I think this whole deal right here is huge, right? The schedule that they laid out during the worldwide celebration last year, right? To me, that is the big sticking point. They literally told us that they were going to plan out a sync, and then they just didn't. We sat for a year waiting for something to happen at any moment, expecting them to do something, and then they, instead of advancing the sync, they actually dropped units like Rosé, which actually just made the problem worse. So I mean, I just kind of feel like that's a big issue for me, right? If they were to announce this thing in 2023, then they should have been working every step of the way, right? If they were gonna release Rosé, he should have been the immediate next Dokkan Fest, right? Or at some point they should have moved, well, actually it should have been Super Trunks. Delaying Super Trunks to January made no absolute sense. They should have either doubled up some units, or like Ichigo said, just take all the units that were gonna be missing and just put them all on a banner later for 150 stones. I would have rather have done that than do what we did, right? February would have been the perfect opportunity to drop UI Goku for global players, right? It would give us something hype to deal with until anniversary, instead of having to wait for, instead of doing what they did where they dropped it immediately in the aftermath of anniversary. Heck, I would have even accepted, right, in place of Frieza in June would have been a nice place for it, right? But doing it in the immediate aftermath, I mean, from a business standpoint, makes sense, but for us as global players, right, knowing that they had a schedule laid out here for us, it really did feel like a big slap in the face. So I definitely would have not have agreed to put UI Goku there. In terms of other things, right, the big thing for me was the lack of global foresight, and we did see a couple mention it earlier, right? Now we no longer have global foresight, right? So knowing what units are coming, you know, months down the road, and being able to plan and help save our stones appropriately is huge for a lot of global players. Yes, maybe I don't agree with this sentiment that units lose hype. I don't think there's a single person who looked at Beast Gohan or Gogeta or AGL Broly or the Gammas, right, in this past 9th anniversary in February, and then July rolled around and all of a sudden you didn't like them anymore. No, they were just as hype as they were on release, in my opinion. Like, I don't think anything changed there. Even for last year's Spirit Bomb duo, right? The hype didn't get lost, right? Nothing changed for them. People were still excited to summon for them in July. It's just a matter of waiting. And the delayed gratification there is you had more time to save. What I fear is going to happen now without the lack of global foresight is most people aren't going to be summoning like at all, especially now with the addition of pity coins on major celebration banners. It means that most people are probably only going to be summoning on worldwide and on anniversary. That means teams are going to be incredibly lacking. It means that, you won't be able to plan ahead accordingly. Now, pity does help mitigate this a little bit, but overall, we're going to see, I think, a lot more lack of diversity when it comes to team building, as, the anniversary and worldwide banners aren't necessarily for building cohesive teams. So that is something we have to consider as global players moving forward, that now that that's gone, we have to be more careful of when we summon, and I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to only be summoning once a year, but we still got to be careful. So, I definitely, I don't know. Given all of this, I don't know if the road here was worth it. We'll have to see how the 10th anniversary is going to be handled to know if it was fully worth it. If it ends up being just another regular old anniversary, then I don't know that the change was necessarily for the best. We might have been better just having our delay for the benefits that came with it. But we will have to see. So guys, that is it for this community discussion. We will have more in the future. I love doing these. I love hearing what you guys have to say. And I love using this as a chance to get your guys' voice out there, as well as, actually give my opinion on something for once. But love to hear what you guys have to say. You guys always have great insight. And, there were a lot of things here I hadn't considered. And I do think that, who was it? It was Taiga that brought up here, right? The delay actually helped players formulate teams over time. I think that's a big point, and I hadn't considered that before, so I did want to acknowledge that. So, guys, that's it for the video. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, if you didn't get a chance to respond to this query, right, was the sync worth it in the end? Let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.